It is so good to be live once again with all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there. Just to give a little bit of context, it has been a struggle bus to get to here, but we are here. And yeah, so hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds, and welcome to another live streamed edition of the Grapple Gurus, your somewhat weekly. At this point, it's summer. There are so many pay per views this summer, so we're probably going to be here on a weekly basis now. But we are part of your Grapple Gurus, the pay-per-view and PLE review team. And tonight, we have the NXT crew reunited and here to review NXT Battleground that took place on Sunday, June 9th, 2024. This is a bittersweet moment because this is the final NXT review that we're going to be doing on this channel for the meantime. Don't worry, the team is not going anywhere. It's just we collectively decided we're going to put NXT to rest. We're going to tag NXT out for another promotion, which I will talk about at the end of this review. I am one of your NXT hosts, Mikey, also known as El Jefe around the BC WrestlePod parts. I'm the man with half the plan and the face that somewhat runs the place. And originally, it was just going to be me tonight because I felt bad and I didn't want, people are tired and they're busy. I was like, all right, I started NXT reviews by myself when we did this a year ago, so I'm going to go this out. Nope, that is not the case. He has no idea how much I appreciate his time and effort to this. And I am happy to have him here as part of the final chapter for NXT for now, at least in this, realm. But you know him, you love him. You can find him all over the TNA reviews, as well as our new review show coming in 2 weeks. But I have Will, also known as Papa Oso himself. Will, thank you for being here. I know you're exhausted. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I really wanted to be here because it was our last one. So I just didn't know if I could because, the show. But I got out and I got here and here I am. So
yay. And so I'm super excited. It is a bittersweet moment, but I am happy to be here with Will. As mentioned, we are going to be reviewing NXT Battleground. So what better way, and these words don't often get said to us that often, but we're going to come out on top for this one because we are here for the final one. But before we get into the hijinks that was NXT Battleground, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you enjoy what we do, make sure you can check us out on the YouTube channel at BC WrestlePod, youtube.com/BC WrestlePod, where you can find all those reviews we do for the weekly TV shows from Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, TNA, Ring of Honor, all the good stuff. And then starting in 2 weeks, I will get into that in a little bit, but I'm super excited. And stay tuned because this is not the only pay-per-view that's going to be reviewed this week. There's 2 more in succession, so this is going to be good. You can follow us all over the social medias at that handle as well, at BC WrestlePod. We are on the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram, the Threads, the TikToks, all the social medias of the kids. We're not on Snapchat because that's questionable at best. But you could also find all our social medias on the nXlvl app. Shout out to nXlvl for continuing to sponsor us and working with us. Stay tuned for that because there might be some collabs in the future. Also, it is important to mention that I haven't told anybody this yet, but after connecting with some of the folks we met at the New Jersey Wrestle Show, your boy this Sunday is going to be guesting on the Nick and Nicole Love Wrestling podcast, which is going to be super excited. Nick is one of the individuals we met at the convention in New Jersey, and I'm happy to start our summer of collabs. So I will be popping over there, and he and his wife might be popping in over here during the summer. It's going to be fantastic. Now that I got all that housekeeping, and then, of course, how could I forget? Last but certainly not least, we have merch now. Click the link in our description of our bio and buy some merch. It is very cool. I love it. Now that we got the housekeeping out the way, let me just do one more thing. So we are here to review NXT Battleground. This is a pay-per-view that has been mixed amongst the NXT fandom, ourselves included. But just because we have differing opinions doesn't mean that we're going to argue with the internet or we're going to bring anyone down. And why is that? Well, here's why. So just as a spoiler warning, just as an important notice, if this is your first time here at the BC WrestlePod Grapple Gurus review, lots of things to say about Battleground. But keep everything in the comments respectful and loving, and don't be a turd, because if you are a turd, you will be blocked, banned, bamboozled. Adios. You lose. Good day, sir. So that is where I am. All right, well, let's get into this because this was a show that was full of ups and downs. And as somebody who watched NXT yesterday too, It also led to lots of questions as well. So I'm only going to bring up certain parts of NXT that go in tandem with Battleground. But one thing I can't fault, NXT and WWE is they know how to make a good poster. Like, this poster is beautiful. I love it so much. But we are here to review NXT Battleground Las Vegas. This was an interesting pay-per-view because for the first time ever, NXT held a pay-per-view in the UFC Apex Center since, WWE and UFC are now merged together into TKO. So UFC is like, hey, let's have a wrestling pay-per-view in our arena. Didn't necessarily work. We'll talk about that as we go along with the show because I have some critiques about, the size of the arena. But let's get into probably one of my biggest highlights of the evening. We kick off with the six-packed ladder match to crown our inaugural NXT Women's North American Champion. We had a series of qualifying matches of the 12 women that placed in the top 12 of the women's combine that NXT had a couple weeks ago. And our 6 women in this match include Michin, Lash Legend, Kelani Jordan, Jada Parker, Sol Ruka, and Fallon Henley. This was probably the best choice to open up with this match because these women killed it. Everyone got time to shine, but there were particular moments that I loved for sure. Sol Ruka just snatching souls left and right was nuts. Everybody throwing Lash Legend, and Lash looked like she landed hard on that ladder. But we're going to gush about it, and let's just talk about the moment that's important. Your first ever NXT Women's North American Champion is Kelani Jordan. And I had to include this picture in here. I told you in a text message, but I screamed at my television when she grabbed that title. I was like, yeah!
I cried. I'm not even going to lie. I had tears in my eyes. I was so excited for her. I just having, for the while I've been here and watching her kind of progress and just seeing that she just couldn't get in there. And it was driving me insane because she's so good. And I got to a point where I started feeling like they were not using her right. And I was like, oh, she's, and I picked her for this. I was like, she was my pick to win this, and I know she was going up against some really, really experienced wrestlers, some badasses, if we say, well, they were all badasses, but including Kelani. And I know there are people on the interwebs that are all like, why did she win so, or it should have been so. And I'm like, because this girl has worked her ass off to get here, and I think she deserved it. Would I have been happy if like Lash had won it? Or absolutely, because all the women were amazing. But I have been a Kelani fan since day one, and I have said it multiple times. If you go back and watch and listen to us, I have said it multiple times that there's something waiting for this woman, something big. And here it is. And when she climbed that ladder, I cannot tell you how choked up. I got so emotional that I literally cried tears. I am so freaking happy for her. And I hope she holds it for a while too. I hope they don't just, she didn't just get it and then they're going to take it from her. I really hope she holds on to that because she freaking deserves it.
And again, as I mentioned before, I watched NXT last night. So to add in with all this, first and foremost, congratulations to Kelani Jordan. Now, obviously, I had thought Sol was going to be our inaugural one because Sol Ruka is also a big thing. And me and Andrew had a conversation offline about this too, where we went back and forth, but like in a respectful. And at the end of it, we're still cool and we're still friends because I can see on the one hand, I feel like Sol, having come back from injury and just the momentum and trajectory she's had since her return, has been great. But I also made the argument that I feel that of all 6 women, I feel that Kelani was probably a good choice to be the inaugural champ for the Women's North American Championship because she signed in 2022. And for the last 2 years, she has worked her butt off and she's impressed a lot of people. Lest we forget, even though she wasn't in the match for long, she's had some really good feuds. She had a really good performance in the Iron Woman Survivor Challenge at Deadline and like at the end of December last year, where we almost thought she was going to hurt herself because of how much she flipped on tables and everything. But Kelani, I think, is a good one. Sol Ruka is definitely going to get her time to shine. I'm not worried about Sol not getting a title. Now that we have a mid-card title in NXT, there are multiple women's opportunities to go after the main championship and the North American championship in the women's division. And by the looks of things that happened on, Tuesday on NXT, we're setting up the next challenger because next week Kelani will be defending her title for the first time against Michin. So I'm super excited about that. It's going to be so good. And, and we'll talk about it when we get to a certain match, but Roxanne's challenge pool has multiplied into 3 different challengers, which I'm actually super excited, but I'm really happy to see Kelani win this. She has worked her butt off. She has impressed me, and I'm excited to see her hold on to this and have a good title reign. I have no words to express this. I was just overcome with joy when this happened.
I can see Solruka being the second one to take it. I think I could see her being this. I really think so. I think that because originally when I was looking at this card, I was leaning towards Solruka, but then I was thinking no, because she just came back in. She's too new. That was my big thing. And Michin too. Michin, they're too new. And I know backgrounds and everything, but they're here now, but I was like, it's just too new. Then I was like, well, maybe Fallon or Lash, because they've been there for a while. But then I was thinking, well, Fallon's new as well as a solo performer, and Jada is also new to the solo performance. So to me, Kelani felt like the natural choice because she's been a solo performer since she got there. I mean, she's just. And like I said, all 6 of these women are fantastic. And honestly and truly, if any of them had gotten this outside of Kelani, I would have been totally fine with it. I've just been, like I said, Kelani, I've just been behind you since day one, girl. So if you ever watch this, I'm a big fan. Huge fan. So well done. Congrats.
Yeah. I had a conversation with another person that follows us, and, they brought something interesting. And this is where I said, I think Soul, and I agree with you, Will, I think Soul is going to be the second the women's North American champion. Mm-hmm. And what I pictured is, because the way that things are set up, depending on certain things, which I think is a good 3-month run for Kelani, which I think would be good. And then Soul can win it, because No Mercy is also a big one for NXT now, especially after last year.
Right. And I think that will give me time to create a rivalry with someone, because she doesn't really have a rivalry with anyone, like truly, because we haven't really established anything other than people just beating up on her, that sort of, or by association. Like there is no, you might, but I can't remember anyone that was specifically like, I hate you, Kelani Jordan,
Right. Like, technically we had something going before, but Kiana James and Kelani were kind of feuding before Kiana got called up to Raw. Yeah. And so, for right now, if we're going to have Kelani have something for Heatwave, I can see her doing a short program, because she still has unfinished business with Fallon. So I think Fallon would be a really good challenger, a first feud for Kelani, and then work her way up to Soul. I think that match will be phenomenal. Soul versus Kelani, the gymnast, the acrobatic of it. I am here for it. But Kelani Jordan is our inaugural NXT Women's North American Champion. She will be facing Michin next week on NXT for the title, which is great. I love Michin. I love Kelani Jordan. It's going to be fantastic. So we move on from this beautiful moment that kicked off Battleground, and we get into our second match of the evening for the NXT Tag Team Championship match. We have our champions, Axiom and Nathan Frazier, whom have been dubbed as Velocity by our lovely Andrew, taking on Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson of the OC. Again, Nathan and Axiom continue to live up to their unofficial tag team name, because these boys just did not slow down.
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so this might be blasphemous of me to say. I wasn't expecting too much for this match, but I was pleasantly surprised of how intense and how aggressive the OC were. I was mad. I was like, y'all saved everything for this match, which I ended up liking this match a lot more than I thought I was going to. But my biggest issue is, where was this intensity for the last couple weeks as we were building towards this? Even the beatdown that happened on the Go Home show when the OC beat up Velocity, I was just like, it was kind of like meh. But where was all this intensity in the ring? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like this too. But you know, it took me a while to get into it because one, I don't like the OC. I don't like them being here. I'm nothing against the two gentlemen that are in it. I just don't like their presence. There's something about them that I just like, why are they here? This should be somebody else. This should be a different tag team going against them. I don't know. But after I got past all of my sort of jadedness and I actually settled in and watched it, I really did enjoy the actual match. I was like, okay. And I agree with you. I think, you know, this is a constant thing, I think, that we've seen with NXT over the year, you know, however long we've been doing it. It feels like millions of years. But the fact that they either solo or tag teams, doesn't really matter who it is. They kind of like lower the bar, you know, up to, you know, building to the pay-per-views. They keep the bar really low, and then suddenly and sometimes, not all the times, because sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes, like this instance, suddenly that tag team explodes, and it's like what they did in the pay-per-view in the episodes leading to here, or even from the very moment they got there. I think I would have been on board with them more, because to me what it felt like when they first came in is like, we're the OC, they're going to give us whatever we want, and that bugged me. That was bugging the crap out of me.
And I mean, Gallows and Anderson have made it known, and we know this, they are older. I don't want to say they're old, but they are definitely older. They've had a longer career than most of our NXT kids here. But the presentation is that normally, and this is what I've seen, normally if you have more seasoned wrestlers, you want to present them as these, not intimidating, but you want them present them as this, that they know what they're doing, and present them as like a credible threat. But the presentation that we've been given is they're the cool dags of NXT, and I thought they were going to be leaning towards more comedy. And then they slowly got into the Gallows and Anderson that I know of New Japan, which is a little more vicious, but even then, they kept going back and forth between that. And it wasn't until this match where I was like, okay, that's the shades of the New Japan Gallows and Anderson that I know of, the more aggressive style. And say what you will, but Gallows and Anderson definitely are a good example of a tag team who has been together, because they just pulled off things that only people who have been tagging forever can do. And I liked the match. I just was mad that it took us to the pay-per-view to get this intensity. And like, this is the correct way to present Gallows and Anderson to me.
Yeah. See, I guess that's what I was saying. If they had introduced them like this, then I would have been on board with them immediately. Because once I actually stopped and watched the match, I was like, God, I really like these guys. I hate that the precursor to this event painted them in such a crappy light for me. I hate that. And, you know, and I feel like I was cheated. I literally feel like I was cheated, because then after I watched this match, I was like, God, I really like these guys now. Like, I wish I had seen this. And yeah, I don't know. I was so mad at the end of this, at the end of the, not the episode, at the end of this match, I was so angry. I'm not angry, but I was really disappointed that we didn't get this OC at the beginning, because I would have grabbed hold of these guys and gone with them, like, easily.
Yeah, well, I would want to see them become champs. Now, the good thing is that OC is going to be sticking around NXT, because it seems that they repaired them up with Michin, because on SmackDown, it was AJ Styles, Michin, and Gallows and Anderson. And it seems that Michin is going to have the OC boys as her entourage, which I'm here for. I love the three as a faction. And again, WWE and all three brands loves good factions. So I'm here for it. But Nathan and Axiom are our tag team champs still. And it seems that they're also setting up for, you know, possibility of a rematch with the family. But there also is Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne are in the mix too, because they were on NXT, which we'll talk about them when we get to a certain part of the Battleground. Because I did not appreciate our Welshman boys attacking a certain Wes Lee later in the episode for Battleground, but we'll talk about it when we get there. Better, but This was still a good match.
I totally agree. It was a good match.
So we're going to leave the tag team division for now, because, okay, this one I feel like this has been the most divisive. So let me just say this. So let me get this out the way. So the next match we got was an NXT Underground match, and this was Shayna Baszler versus Lola Vice. Now, I will say this. I think both women looked great. I loved Shayna Baszler's like pants that was just splattered with blood. That was phenomenal. I love Lola Vice in the braids. Like both women showed up with the gear, and their skills are impeccable. I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to unfortunately invoke the name that was SummerSlam 2023 because Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey had an MMA match at the middle of SummerSlam. And our biggest problem with that match out of anything was that trying to have an MMA fight using WWE style of wrestling does not work. Do I think that this match did a kind of a better job at that? Yes. But my issue still stands with these are two legit MMA women with MMA and jiu-jitsu backgrounds. We know they can beat the crap out of each other, but it's really difficult because you could tell that they were pulling punches and pulling kicks. They were not going a full ham with it. And I feel that for me, it took me out of the moment because overall, while this was definitely a slower paced match, I did enjoy it. I do think the correct person won, but it just really sucked that I could visibly see them holding punches and kicks throughout the whole entire match.
Yeah, I agree. This match was okay. You know, it wasn't horrible, but I won't lie. I really didn't see the point of this match. I loved both of them. I thought they were both great. Of course, I'm a Lola. I love her. But I just like, why was this match here? Why was it even at the pay-per-view? I don't even think it. I don't. And again, and it's not no diss to these women, okay? Because these women rock. They rock the planet. I don't understand why these two were there. I don't. And again, this is no diss on these women because these women rock the planet. But I don't know. I just out of the whole episode of the whole pay-per-view, I felt like this was the most out of place, believe it or not. I really felt like it was just sort of dropped in almost. And I agree. I think that, and you could tell, yeah, they were pulling punches. I mean, it felt, dare I say it out loud, it felt staged.
Which is crazy because we're watching professional wrestling in WWE, which is wild. I can't believe that. You said that, Will. How dare you? No, I was kidding. No,
that's it.
We're canceled. We exposed it. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, here you mentioned it earlier. You know, they're two MMA fighters. Let them do it. Let them go. You know, I would like go. I mean, obviously, don't kill each other.
I was like, don't try to like. We don't want nothing. But I feel that because these women have been training for so long in MMA and mixed and just any martial arts to begin with, I feel that WWE could have trusted Lola and Shayna to go a little bit more because the content of what we got was fine. And I saw what they were going for. I just hated that it took me out of my suspension of disbelief with the fact that they were pulling punches and they were pulling kicks. But, you know, the right person, as I love this photo, I had to put it in here. But you would think that these two were like brutally killing each other. And to a certain extent, they kind of did. But I'm just like, y'all were pulling punches, and WWE should have let these women go at it.
Let them go. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't want anyone to get seriously injured, but I trust them to do what they do and make it look good in the parameters of professional wrestling. I really believe that these two professionals could have professionally done this, and we would have been like, oh my God, they're destroying and they're killing each other, without actually doing it. I just feel like they were held back by the powers that be or whatever. But I wanted more from this. I felt like it didn't belong here. I don't feel that it was dangerous enough for this particular style for this underground. I mean, if we look back at like Dijak and Eddie Thorpe, I thought they were going to kill each other. Like it was believable. This one wasn't as believable. There were moments that I was like, ooh, and then I was like, oh, there go okay, now we're pulling punches. That kick didn't actually connect. You can see there were a couple of moments that I noticed, and I was trying to clip them. I was going to send them to you, and I couldn't clip them right. But there was where the kick, I don't know. Anyway, one of them was kicking the other, and the kick came, and it was nowhere near. And they zipped away from it so fast so that you wouldn't see it, but I caught it. I was just like, And of course they were like, and I'm like, that didn't even connect with you in any way. Even in the sparring aspect, it didn't connect. So I'm just like, did I hate the match? No. Did I want more from it? Yes. I want them, this is one of those things, and I'm a big proponent of this, is these people are professionals. Let them do what they do. Stop micromanaging. So I will stop there.
It's okay. I didn't necessarily hate this match. I do think the right person won. And, NXT, it seems that we're setting up Lola versus Roxanne for the title at some point, whether it's at Heat Wave or not. Don't know. But I think a win over Shayna Baszler definitely does help Lola. And again, I agree that Lola winning was the right choice. I just wish that they trusted Shayna and Lola enough to go a little bit harder than they did. But overall, it was still a really fun match. So after this, we get word that, again, we already knew this, but they announced that the next pay-per-view, the PLE for NXT, will be Heat Wave, which will be taking place Sunday, July 7th, 2024. And spoiler, if you have not seen NXT. But again, if you are coming to this pay-per-view review, you know the end result of our main event but Trick's new #1 contender for the title will be determined in a battle royale next week. And it was mentioned and worded that some of the participants are going to be belonging to different locker rooms than NXT. So that might include some main roster talent. I also hear that TNA might make another crossover. So who knows what's going to go down with all of that. But we move on from this NXT Underground match and the announcement of NXT Heatwave. And then, alrighty, we get it. My God, I am going to talk to Will because I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. This was probably the funnest match and probably my favorite match of the whole entire night.
This actually was mine. I actually liked this more than I thought I was going to.
It's just like, there again, this is the intensity that I know you for. I need this all. This match was so much fun, and even with interference from the Gallows boys, Obafemi continues to dominate. But my God, this match was just so much fun, and this was a fantastic bout.
Yeah, it was. Now this is the only one that I missed in our picks, and now here let me caveat it with this. I knew Obafemi was going to retain, but I had to go with Wes because I love him. So I was like, I'm picking Wes. I know he's not going to win. I know he wasn't. I knew he wasn't because I think if he's going to win this title, it's going to be a one-on-one match. I really believe that. But I figured Oba was going to retain. I just had to go with Wes because I'm so excited that he's back, and I love him as a wrestler and as a human being. This match was far more than I thought it was going to be. Because even the Josh Briggs one that he did was good. But I think this one was like way, way better than that one. There was so much going on. You have what I love. You have two powerhouses, and then you have Wes, who's like the fast one. Who's fried.
Yeah.
And then you have the two powerhouses. Joe's like, he may be small, short, but he's powerful. And
see those thighs, bro. Like, man does not skip leg day.
Yeah. He's a little on the yummy side too. But yeah, this was like, it was good. Yeah, Oba he was in his element. This is what I love about Obafemi, is when he's in his element, he is so fun to watch. And he was in his element. When the Gallows boys came in and interfered, he was taking care of business. He was thriving on it. And I was just like, yeah, this is great. This was my match of the night. And I didn't think it was going to be. That's what's so funny about it. But yeah, it was so good. And I wasn't upset that Oba retained either. Not at all. I like Obafemi. I think he's great. I think that WWE NXT kind of painted him in a corner, but they don't really know where to go. That's why we're suddenly seeing all these triple threats with him, because they don't know what to do with him. But I'm okay with it, because if they're all like this one, I'll watch more of them. Bring it on.
Oh, absolutely. If we continue to get triple threats, I will. And what I'm thinking is probably going to end up happening is, especially because Wes, and we'll fast forward a little bit, Wes gets jumped by the Gallows boys later in Battleground before we get to our main event of the evening. Well, he got attacked before the final match of the pay-per-view. Not that we're going to skip our next match because I have things to say about that next match, but it seems that Wes is going to be dealing with Gallus and Joe Coffey for a little bit. So I'm cool if we get some sort of match between them at Heatwave. And again, I feel like No Mercy is the perfect time to switch things where, after Heatwave, after Wes is done dealing with the Gallus boys, and, Gallus continues to pick on Wes, so he calls in reinforcements of, for some reason, the Rascals come on over.
Oh, God.
As Wesley.
That would be great, actually. That would be great.
Wesley technically is a rascal. So call up Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel.
Yeah.
And I probably melted my chair and be like,
I know.
Sexy Nerds Unite. But anyways,
exactly.
Once that's done, which I think should be done at Heatwave, then you can have Wes back up, have Oba and Wes go at it, and Wes wins that title back at No Mercy.
Right. Oba's got to be getting close to going to main roster. He's got to be.
Or at least looking to enter the main NXT championship picture.
I think that he's done all that he can do here. I really do. I mean, don't get me wrong. This was, like I said, this was a fantastic match, but I think we're getting to the end of his, I think they're running out of things to do with him. I mean, he's great. I mean, he walks into a room and you immediately look at him. I mean, it's like he has such a personality, and they've got to be getting him ready to go up to main roster soon. I can't imagine that they're going to keep him down here for very much longer, or over here, not down here. I can't imagine that. Because if I was Oba Femi, I would be getting bored at this point. Because you know what I mean, and again, that's nothing against any of our wrestlers, but I mean, he's in a place where I think he could easily, seamlessly step from NXT to one of the main roster programs. I mean, I truly do, because I think he's that good.
I definitely can see him moving to the main roster. My only worry right now is because, and it's no fault of his own, but I agree in the sense that right now, with him being North American champion, we're kind of running out of challengers for him. So that's why we're kind of doing that. I love the triple threats, but that's also like a double-edged sword with that, because as much as I love to see a triple threat, the issue also is because then he beats everybody in these triple threats. So then you run out of people on the roster faster. Now, with that being said, we are slowly building up some folks that could be potential challengers. Like, I could see an Eddie Thorpe, now that he's back, go up against Oba for that title. I would love to see a triple threat between Oba, West, and Eddie for that title. I would die of happiness. Like, oh my gosh, I just want to see Eddie Thorpe have some sort of championship goal by the end of 2024. I feel like it's long overdue, but regardless of that, again, I think Oba has a small program with whoever you want him to face at Heatwave, if he is going to defend the title at Heatwave. And then you build back to Wes versus Oba and have Wes take the North American title from Oba at No Mercy. But that's, my ideal booking. But this, I agree with you, Will. This is probably my favorite match of the evening. This was such a fun bout. It had a mix of everything I wanted. And this was fantastic. Also, I'm kind of digging the curly Q mustache from Joe Coffey. Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I love your Dick Dastardly villainy. It's kind of... Alrighty. So... let's get into our semi-main events, because I have words.
Yeah, I know.
And you know what? It is not towards Roxanne or Jordan, because honestly, this was on my way to be my favorite match of the evening until the ending is what kind of sucked it out for me. I was like, this is my number 2 match of the evening. Like, this was on the precipice to be my favorite match of the evening, but then the ending happened. But for the NXT Women's, before we get into that, for the NXT Women's Championship, we have Roxanne Perez defending her title against let me repeat this, TNA Knockouts champion Jordan Grace. And this match had what I wanted, because we saw Roxanne be the most aggressive I have ever seen her in her whole entire NXT career. This match against Jordan Grace. And my God, it was a thing of beauty, because Jordan took Roxanne to her limits too. These women were going at it, and this was so good. And then the ending happened, and I got mad. Do you want to talk about the ending first before we talk about everything in general, or do you want to wait?
This match was way better than I thought it was going to be, because I had my issues with this match, and we've talked about it in previous episodes. And I was so torn on it, because I was like, why in the world would they bring a champion from another company into NXT to risk their champion losing their belt? It really bugged me. And then I was like, but then if Roxanne wins, she retains her title, but doesn't get anything else, other than saying, oh, I defeated Jordan Grace. But if Jordan had won, she would have walked away with 2 title belts. And so I had a huge issue with this whole matchup. Now, when we get into the match itself, I was very, very looking forward to it. And I really did enjoy this. And this one was almost my match of the night. I agree with you till the end. But I still went into it with some trepidation because I didn't know. And I figured Roxanne was going to retain. I did, because I picked Roxanne. But I was so why? And then I was thinking, TNA, why are you going to have your champion get defeated on another, why would you allow that? I don't care what connections you've got or whatever, but why in the world would you even want to suggest it? I mean, it's Jordan, because I can't imagine, and I'm sorry, but in the TNA world, if we were in TNA right now, there's absolutely no way. And don't get me wrong, I love Roxanne. I think she's a great wrestler. And both of these women were showing out. But I just thought, is there nobody else that you could have put against Roxanne? That was my biggest issue, is why in the world is Jordan Grace fighting Roxanne Perez? They should not be doing this. And then, in the spirit of cooperation, that's fine, but you don't put your champion in that ring, because one, it makes your champion look weak from someone who I feel is less experienced than Jordan Grace. I'm not saying she is, but that's how she is portraying. She's still green. She's still the new champion. And don't get me wrong, because Roxanne's a great wrestler. I freaking love watching her. I think she's fantastic. I think she's still got a little bit to work on this, this heel thing, but she's getting there, I think. Mostly she needs to work on her promo skills. But was the match, if I step back and pull all that out of the way, this match was pretty badass. It really was. And I figured it was going to be, because both of these wrestlers are badass. And one of the good things I do like about Roxanne, that I really, really like about her as a wrestler, is that she can match her opponent. She's really good at that. So when Jordan came in, she turned it up a notch because she's okay, I've got to keep up with this. And that's fantastic. So I really liked this match. I really did. The ending was, but...
Well, let's get into this, because
fair enough.
This was the best shot.
Yeah.
To incorporate my feelings of this ending. So the match itself is going. I think Roxanne and Jordan are doing really good going back and forth.
Yeah.
Jordan walked out with some battle scars if you checked out the Instagram, because she's like, I officially retired my in-ring competition. That I was like, girl, we got a whole rip and everything. But as we were getting to the end of this match, Miss Tatum Todd, we love Tatum Todd, don't get me wrong, but she comes in and she takes Jordan's title, which then Tatum is about to walk out with it. But then who should come out to, weirdly enough, probably out of selfish reasons, but Ash by Elegance. Hey, Ash.
Hi, baby.
I can never root against her now. I'm just sorry. After that interview that I had with her at New Jersey Wrestle Show, I can't root against her. But Ash comes out, and she and Tatum begin fighting for the Knockouts Championship. Jordan Grace lays both of them out. She gets the title back. She gets back into the ring, which allows Roxanne to hit Pop Rocks for the win. I was just like, damn it, man. This match was on the precipice to be my favorite, but that ending, no. I hate distraction finishes. That's the only big critique I have about this match. Jordan was fantastic. I think this is the best we've seen Roxanne. Roxanne, I know, has the ability. She's literally a prodigy. She's been doing this since she's 14. Oh, yeah. I do agree she needs to work on the promo skills, but that's something that we've all said.
Yeah.
But this was a matchup I was super excited for. It delivered. It's just the ending sucked. And the ending is what kind of took points off of this match for me. But other than that,
I agree with you. I thought the match was fantastic. I think the ending, because it was and then I was just, because then it's why? It was unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. There was no need for it. And to me, it just felt like it cheapened. I mean, it was on fire. I mean, there's, and I don't know if they did it because they think people were getting bored or something. I don't know. So they're like, oh, we need to add some spice to it or something. But to me, it pulled me right out. And I never really got back into it after that. It was like, oh, okay. Boom. Pop rocks happen. We're done. Okay.
Want one.
Yeah, like, I hate that. I hate it. If you're gonna do that shit, do it in the early part of the match. Don't do it towards the damn end. Because I would see it at the beginning.
Yeah, doesn't do anything for Jordan.
No.
Now, I don't think this is the last time we're going to see Tatum taught and Jordan cross paths.
I don't think so either.
So we're going to be crossing some promotions too, but Jordan Grace is holding an open challenge for her Knockouts Championship at Against All Odds. And I would not be surprised if Tatum Paxley answered that, which would be very interesting, but that's neither here nor there. Roxanne is still your NXT Women's Champion. And right now, the field, she's going to have to get through a returning JC Jane to see who's going to be the next challenger for Roxanne, which makes me super excited. I like the prospect, and honestly, I'm happy to see Lash finally get some main championship time because the girl has also earned it too. In fact, all those women have. Lola, JC, and Lash, I think, are really good. But it's really interesting that they're all technically heels, so we got to wait to see who would be a babyface to go against Roxanne. I still think that Roxanne will ultimately lose the title to Julia when Julia makes her debut. Right. So I'm excited for Julia versus Roxanne. That match is going to make me melt in my seat. It's going to be great. Alrighty. So as I mentioned, after this match, Gallows attacks Wes Lee, which leads into my favorite match of NXT last night was Wes Lee and New Catch Republic, which was Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne taking on the Gallows Boys. It was a baller 20-minute match. The Gallows Boys ended up winning, but that's because I think Wes is going to need some backup from some, rascals he knows, which I would die for. They show the bumpers for the episode of NXT, which sees Javon Evans taking on Sean Spears, which is also a phenomenal match from Tuesday. Lexis King and Dante Chen have a Singapore cane street fight, which is basically a kendo stick match, which was also really good. Lexis King won that match, but I was just like, that was nuts. And then we also had Michin versus Jada Parker. Michin won that match. And then, of course, I don't care what nobody says. I shared it with Andrew and Will last night, but NXT had my favorite promo of all times with Thea Hale telling everyone to shut the up and sit down. That was my favorite part of the whole episode. But
my God.
Everyone shut the up and sit down.
Oh my God, that was so great.
I have it saved on my phone and I keep playing it over and over.
I watched it today again.
That is going to be all summer long. I'm going to need to play it every time I get up in the morning because that's how I want to start my day. Everybody shut the up and sit down.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And I love seeing her take charge. But that's for a whole nother thing. You can catch my social media reviews of NXT starting next week. So that's going to be fun. But Will, here we go. We have now come to, after all this madness, we now reach our main event for Battleground. We have All Ego Ethan Page challenging Trick Williams, Whoop That Trick, for the NXT Championship. Okay, I'm going to get some flack for saying this. Again, this is the same issue I had, and I think I can figure it out, but this match was way too short. Once again, your NXT Championship match is way too short, and I don't blame Ethan. And technically, while this is Trick's fault, I don't blame him either. My biggest issue is that, and Will, probably you can agree with me or disagree with me. I love Trick. His charisma is off the charts. He's over with the fans. However, and we've said this on multiple occasions, he has improved so much, but he is still green. He is still green. And I think that's what's kind of holding him back right now. Is because it's kind of the same thing how I felt at the match he had with Carmella at Stand and Deliver. Is also way too short. It's because Trick is still green. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be champion, but you can definitely tell when you have somebody who has been in this business for a while, i.e. Ilya, he can go out and fight with anybody. Ethan is also a vet. This is not his first time wrestling. He's been doing this for a while. And I think Ethan was great to make Trick look good, but this match suffered for the fact that Trick is still green and he's still learning the business, which obviously is going to happen. And I'm happy to see he finally become champion. I don't want Trick to lose his title anytime soon, but we got to figure out a way to remedy this because I don't want to keep having Trick have these short matches.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do a couple of things. I'll talk about this match in a minute, but I think what you're talking about, I think is the one thing is they don't put him in matches like they did Ilya. Because remember with Ilya, everybody was like, Ilya, I want to fight you. He's like, okay, let's go do it.
Literally, like on his second week on NXT, Ilya had a match against the newcomer Javon Evans, and that match was baller.
It was so good. But I mean, they don't do that with Trick. They don't, and I think that's the only way he's gonna be not green is if he is constantly defending his title. And he's got to, I mean, you got to learn by doing. I mean, I think that's truly the way it is. I think they're trying to ride his popularity wave right now because I love Trick. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything negative about it because I love this man. But I think that him as a wrestler is suffering for that. I think he's like, because right now he's like the face of NXT right now. I mean, and which yay, because I freaking love him. But he needs to be fighting, if not every other week, or he needs to be getting something. He needs to be putting his skills to work. And right now, that's not what he's doing. They're literally making him sort of like the poster boy and just making it, putting a pretty promo up with his face on it.
Right. So let me put it this way. Between when he won this championship at Spring Break-In to now, and everybody can correct me, the only match he had is when he teamed up with Javon Evans to take on the Gallows boys a couple weeks ago in a tag team match. And even then, Javon kind of carried him and Trick to that win. And because Javon, even though he's fairly young, Javon is in the category that I put Roxanne and a couple others. They've been doing this forever. So they know what they're doing. And Trick is literally still new to wrestling and professional wrestling in general. The match itself wasn't bad, but I agree with you. That's the only match, to my knowledge, that Trick has had since Spring Break-In, because I thought him and Noam were going to do something, but then it was just constantly watching Trick get jumped and beat up for weeks. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, Ethan Page, we'll throw you at him. And that's my other problem I have. Ethan Page is new to Will. Ethan Page is not new to me. I know how good Ethan is.
This, it was funny that you mentioned that. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? This match should have been on one of the weeklies, because if you're going to introduce Ethan Page, like his official introduction as a wrestler, this was not the place for it. We knew, we all knew going in that Trick was not going to lose this match. So this was like, and so therefore the new person you're bringing in that most people know because he's a veteran looks completely out of function, weak, like, oh, you should probably not be doing this because you can't even beat Trick Williams, who is greener than you are. And and again, that's no diss against Trick by any means, but it was the wrong place to do it. They should have brought him in. He should have faced like Lex King or somebody. I mean, honestly, he should have come in and just like started from the bottom and worked his way up. But see, this is one of my big issues again with NXT is they bring in veterans and folks like this who are either a main roster or they left and they're coming back, whatever. And they throw them right at the top. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I think that's fantastic. And I'm sure, Ethan, you're an amazing wrestler. I mean, what I saw was really good. I don't know your history, but I also don't think that you deserve to go to the top, right? Like skip ahead in the line. I don't think that it should work that way. He should have started at the bottom on a weekly episode, fighting somebody down there and make 2 or 3 different matches and work his way up to going for Trick. I thought this was a disservice to both of them. Honestly, it was a huge disservice to Ethan Page. I'm sorry it was. I don't know the guy, but to go to a pay-per-view and lose, and I'm like, and I don't care. And I mean, I'm sorry. And again, you lost to Trick Williams.
If I'm going to so I'm going to be honest, because literally this match was put on the pay-per-view literally at the go home show. Literally, that's what it was. Honestly, I feel that Ethan fight for Trick's title was a bit too soon. I think the better match, and I mean, they were playing it up on social media and even recapping it this week, you could have had Ethan versus Oro, because Oro's been trying to get revenge on Ethan for attacking him the last couple for this whole entire week. I would have rather, maybe not in the main event. Roxanne and Jordan should have been our main event. Even with the want ending, I would have been okay if that was the main event and have Ethan fight Oro instead. But of course, you can't necessarily have an NXT pay-per-view without your NXT championship. It's just that I hated that this is how we got to this match. And again, this is a disservice to both Trick and Ethan. We need to have Trick consistently, even in non-title matches, just have him go out and fight, like do eliminator style matches where, if the person beats him, they get a championship match. And if not, that's
Mhm.
cool. But like that's what AEW does, and I have my problems with that because they call them eliminator matches, but nobody really ever wins those. But the point being is that Trick needs to consistently be fighting either every other week or every week. And it doesn't always have to be for the title. That way he gets his reps in and he looks better. NXT, you need to let Trick. I know he is the Whoop That Trick era. He is super massively over with the fans. He is the face of this iteration of
Mhm.
NXT, and I'm so happy that we're finally here. But we got to make sure that he is owning his skills because otherwise the fans are going to turn and you're going to lose the momentum you got with him in terms of being a champion. That's all I'm saying. But
I totally agree.
Joe versus Trick at Heatwave would be fantastic. Who knows? That is going to be next week's episode. But Will, we have reached the end of this review for NXT Battleground Las Vegas. So let's get into our final ratings. Despite everything, despite my critiques with some like the last two matches, I actually really enjoyed this pay-per-view better than I thought I did. Again, it's the same thing I said during the Stand and Deliver review. The build-up for some of these matches was wah-wah, but I ended up liking the pay-per-view as a whole. But I will say this was probably not my favorite pay-per-view this whole entire year so far. And even saying that, I still enjoyed myself. I'm gonna give this a solid like 7 out of 10 for me. I don't want to give it quite a 6.5 because it wasn't that bad, but I give this like I'll probably give it like a 6.75. I'll go in between. I thought there was a lot of things that I liked. There were some fun matches, but the ending to Roxanne and Jordan killed me, and then the main event did not feel like a main event, which took a lot of points out for me. And also, we didn't mention it, but like if you're gonna have a host, the host should be doing something like every other in between every other match. We had Sexy Red in the beginning, and we kind of had her when she talked to Lola, and that was it. That was the end. That was all we saw of Sexy Red. I was like, what's the point of having Sexy Red host if she wasn't going to do anything else? But that's neither here nor there. I ultimately enjoyed Battleground. Even though we are not reviewing it on the actual channel, I am looking forward to seeing what's going to be happening with Heatwave. But I give Battleground a 6.75. I thought it was pretty good. It was decent.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd fall about 7.5 maybe, because I thought there's some pretty stellar stuff in here, and then there was some stuff that was questionable, but that usually is. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, of course, the highlights are Kelani winning up until the end. I thought the Jordan Grace Roxanne fight was really good. Of course, the the triple threat was fantastic, and then the others were okay. So yeah, I'd probably give it about 7.5. It was a decent pay per view, and it wasn't stellar, obviously, but it was decent.
Well, Will, we have reached the end of this rendition of Grapple Gurus, but more importantly, this is the final NXT review for now, because who knows, we might bring NXT back down the road, but as of now, we are putting NXT to bed. Before we log off, I want to get sentimental for a little bit because yesterday was the 1-year anniversary for BC WrestlePod. So June 11th, 2023 is when we started this thing and we uploaded our first video, which was just Adolfo doing some wrestling news. And this was just ideas we were having. And we slowly started doing TV reviews. And then it was just me, Adolfo, JVL, Professor, and Minnie. And then fast forward a year, we picked up Will and Andrew and Jesse. We expanded to all the shows that we're covering now. We got into live streaming. We are social media folks now. It's wild for sure. And this has been a really fun chapter for NXT because when we started this last year, I was the only person that was doing TNA and NXT. And then once we picked up Andrew and Will, I had 2 other people to review those shows with me. And it's nice that I didn't have to do this final NXT one by myself. I got to do it with someone who we picked up in the middle of this run and has fallen in love with NXT as much as I have and reps it as much as I do. So I'm super excited. This is not the end of me, Will, and Andrew being a team because we are going to be taking a short hiatus. So there will be no review on next Wednesday unless me and Andrew and Will decide to do something one-off. Who knows? But in 2 weeks, on June 23rd, 2024, we will officially be repackaging ourselves, and we will no longer be the DDT reviews, but we will morph into something crazier, and we will be presenting the new review team and we will be known as Los Lobos de la Lucha because we are covering CMLL. It's going to be completely different. Language barrier is not a problem for us. We like to watch flippy dippy things. And I'd have to do some talking behind the scenes, but Los Lobos de la Lucha team may no longer be a trio. It might end up being a quartet, but stay tuned for that. But for the final time here for Grapple Gurus, the DDT team, myself and Will, and even Andrew, the three of us have had such an amazing time, and we thank you all for being a part of this NXT journey with us, and we are excited to start the CMML journey in 2 weeks. But we're going to log off for the evening. So thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. From us for the final time at DDT and all the BC Wrestle Pod boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic. More importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will see you in 2 weeks for CMLL. But until then, ta-ta for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's going to happen next time? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.